Good morning and welcome to the Soul Shop. I'm your host, Phyllis King. I had the good fortune to interview Neale Donald Walsch a couple of weeks ago. It was my second time, and I have to say, it was equally as riveting to me. He has such a significant story. And I think when anyone has risen to the heights he has in his life and touched so many people, they just come with a different presence and consciousness I think we all can benefit from. But of course, as luck would have it, there was a little technological snafu at the beginning and record didn't get going until we just started our conversation. So I wanted to give him the introduction he deserves before we got right into the interview. So here you go. Of course, Neale has written over 40 books on contemporary spirituality and its practical application, including his book God Talk, Experiences of Humanity's Connection to Higher Power, and that's the one we were talking about the other day. He's a best-selling author of course, Conversations with God. It's a series, and 7 of the 9 books he's written of Conversations with God made it to the New York Times bestseller. One of them stayed on for 134 weeks. And of course, his titles have been translated into 37 languages, read by millions of people. So many people have been impacted by his words, and rightfully so. And you'll get the gist, of course, if you haven't spent time with Neale. And of course, he still does classes and such, continues to write, and he's just the most gentle and loving soul. So enjoy. Here you go.
It's the first time. It's the first time in all the years I've been writing that that a publisher actually called me and said, "Would you be willing to write a book for us?" Normally, an author writes a book and then they try to find a publisher who will put it out.
Right.
But in this case, a publisher called my house and said, would you be willing to write a book for us? And the title is God Talk, and we'd like you to tell people, about how they could have their own conversation with God. So I said, there's no guarantee, of course, for anybody, but I'll be happy to share with them, the process that I used. And they did turn that into a book. And as you just explained, they did something really interesting. Phyllis, they put an item on the internet inviting anybody who ever felt they also had an intervention with the divine or intervention from the divine to send in their stories. And they told me they had received hundreds of stories from people around the world. So they took out the 7 or 8, I forgot the exact number, but 8 or 9 of the very best stories, the most interesting ones, and included them in this book, God Talk. So yeah, it's an interesting a document that I think people might find fascinating.
It is fascinating. And of course, we always align it with our own experience. And I was wondering 2 things. Do we always make it harder than it actually is? And does every awakening require hardship? I
Well, the
think,
answer to the second question is no.
okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, every awakening does not require hardship. But for those of us who are stubborn, then maybe a little bit of hardship along the way stops us in our tracks and makes us say, okay, obviously there's something I don't understand here fully, about life, about God, about myself, whatever, the understanding of which would change everything. So that's what happened in my case. What was your first question?
Well, I guess it was a little bit, there's a line in the book and on the cover, it talks about it's something we're all getting wrong about God, but is it really, are we making it harder than it has to be? And I know later in the book you say it's more about focusing on God rather than how to talk to God. And I don't know, are we complicating it?
I think so, yes. Okay. I think most people who believe in God, and by the way, that's 8 out of 10 people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I didn't make that number up. Sociologists took a survey about 9 or 10 years ago around the world. They actually went to nations across the globe, and they asked a one question survey. They took a one question survey. The survey was the question was, do you believe in a higher power?
Yeah.
And 8 out of 10 people said yes.
Mm.
They couldn't all agree on what the higher power was or what it wanted or what it does if it doesn't get what it wants. But 8 out of 10 people said, yeah, they believe that there's more going on here than meets the eye. There is a higher power.
Mhm.
So, but in answer to your question, do we make it more complicated? My observation is yes, most people, not everyone, but the largest number of people who believe in a God believe that God's relationship with human beings is transactional.
Yes.
That is, we think that, you know what, if we give God what God wants, God will give us what we want. But
Mhm.
if we don't give God what God wants, then God will not give us what we want. We think that God's relationship is transactional. And because we think that's how God behaves with us, we behave that way with each other.
Mm.
Because our religions tell us we should try to be godly, but try to behave as we understand that divinity would behave. But if we think that divinity behaves with us like a trade deal between nations, I got to get what I need, and then you get what you want.
Yeah.
Um, we'll behave that way with each other as well.
Mm.
So we do make things in life much more complicated because we think that we're in a trade relationship with God, a quid pro quo.
Mm.
You give me this, and I'll give you that.
So
So
is part of the answer being unconditional with ourselves, or what is the answer to solving that for ourselves? Because it seems so deeply ingrained.
the answer is to embrace a new definition of God,
Mm.
which creates a new definition of who we are, which creates a new way to behave with each other. And I can give you a new definition of God that people may want to consider. But I was told by God that this is, if you want to define who God is, I can give you 2 words that can define God:
Okay.
pure love.
Oh, right. That was in the book. Right.
Now,
Not,
when I say that
yes.
in front of an audience, Phyllis, I have to tell you that when I say that in front of a group of people, someone in the back of the room inevitably gets up and says something like, "Oh, Neale, have we been listening to you for 15 minutes for you to tell us that God is love?" I mean, everybody agrees on that. Even religions that have doctrinal differences all agree that God is love.
Hmm.
And I have to say to my friend in the back of the room, wait a minute, that's not what I said. I said that God is pure love. Now my friend in the back of the room will say, okay, what's the difference?
Hmm.
The difference is that pure love needs, expects, requires, and demands nothing in return.
Yes.
We can't even love the person on the pillow next to us in that way. Much less can we imagine a God who loves us that way. But once we change our idea about how God loves us, once we decide that, you know what, God is not involved in a trade deal with us. God needs nothing from us any more than we would need something from an 18-month-old baby.
Mm.
You don't tell an 18-month-old child or a 2-year-old, little girl, you need to give me this, and then I'll give you that.
Right.
We hopefully most parents don't have transactional relationships with their children. They love their children, I want to say, without condition. Even if your child, you know, gets all excited because you brought out the birthday cake for their 2-year-old birthday party. and in their excitement, reaching for the cake. Oh, my favorite cake, chocolate cake. And they knock over the glass of milk and they spill the milk all over the table.
Mm-hmm.
We don't say to the child, it's okay, sweetheart. Daddy forgives you. Of course not. We realize that forgiveness is not part of the equation.
Mm.
Mm. We're old enough to realize there's no use crying over spilled milk. And you don't blame a child for the behavior of a 2-year-old. You simply understand.
Mm-hmm.
Even as God understands human beings who are acting like 2-year-olds,
Mm-hmm.
which is, frankly, the majority of us. So once we come to love each other the way God loves us, unconditionally, without needing, requiring, expecting, or demanding anything in return, then the world will change and our lives will be different from anything we ever imagined they could be like. It's just very simple. You know what? There was a guy who was walking around the planet here about 2,000 years ago who put all of this into one simple sentence. He said, do unto others as
Mm-hmm.
you would have it done unto you.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite simple.
So essentially, this conditioning around transactional relationships has taught us to be this way. Are we
Yes,
unlearning? Okay.
yeah. Our culture has taught us to be this way,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and so we've stepped into this behavioral pattern because it's how everyone else is behaving.
Mm-hmm.
What we need now are some idea heroes who would behave in a different way, even though they'd be in the minority, and some of them would even, you know, be called blasphemers.
Mm-hmm.
What did I think George Bernard Shaw was the one who said, "All great truth begins as blasphemy."
Hmm.
So the great truth is that we are pure love. That's what we are, since we are all individual expressions of divinity.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can begin to interact with each other in that way, that doesn't mean we never disagree with each other, but we simply find a way to disagree agreeably.
Yeah.
It's quite simple. It's really quite simple.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know here you've done your best to lay it out for us in 40 books that you've written and all of your interviews and workshops and things over the years, but I'm still struggling with, you know, how do I stay awake? How do we stay awake once we're awakened? You know,
I
I know
think
some
by
of your, yeah, go for it.
I think how we stay awake is by sharing with others how they can awaken, and not by belittling them or indicating to them in some way that they're not awake by saying, "Hey, snap out of it. You're a sleepwalker." But
Yeah.
by simply demonstrating through our behaviors,
Mm-hmm.
through every thought, every word, and every deed, through our thoughts, words, and deeds, we can demonstrate what it means to be humanly divine.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Jesus did.
Mm-hmm.
It's what all the great teachers, male and female through the years, Catherine of Genoa, Hildegard of Bingen, Elizabeth of Hungary.
Mm-hmm.
It's what Muhammad, bless his holy name, what he did. It's what Moses did. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's what all the great teachers, male and female, through the centuries have done. They've simply demonstrated by their thoughts, words, and actions what it means to be truly human. That is, to be truly individuations of divinity, which is who we are. The
Mhm.
challenge for human beings in the largest number is that we have denied our true identity.
Mhm. So those of us who, I mean, I struggle with this concept that we're choosing pain. So if someone's having a heartbreak or a financial challenge and they're stressed out about it, eh, it's uncomfortable. Is being uncomfortable, can that coexist with being awake? Or how do we deal with that and still feel or still be a demonstration of awakeness or the godliness? Or is it just a process of deconditioning and becoming more godlike?
Yes, it is, of course, a process. And as we move through the process, we get to a place in our life where we realize that nothing, no situation, no circumstance, no series of events, that nothing has any meaning save the meaning we give it.
Ah, okay.
So we are tacking the meaning onto events and circumstances.
Mhm.
I learned that the hard way. I wound up because of circumstances in my life. I never thought it would happen, but I did wind up living the great American nightmare.
I know.
That is, I wound up living on the sidewalk
Yeah.
for a year of my life. I had nowhere to live.
Wow.
I had one pair of shoes, one pair of jeans, two shirts, and that's it.
Wow.
That was the sum total of my personal possessions.
Wow.
So I would have to, I had nowhere to live. I was sleeping on the sidewalk, or maybe I could find a piece of soft ground somewhere. I couldn't get out of the rain. I couldn't get out of the cold. I couldn't get out of the snow. I lived that way through a very cold winter.
Wow.
When I went to one person after the other with my hand out, could you could you give me anything, even a few coins? I could get through the day, and by the end of the day, I could maybe even find a way to buy a bag of French fries or even a hamburger somewhere.
Mm.
And you don't know what it's like. You don't know how you've lost all of your human dignity when you live on the street because I hate to be graphic, but to be direct, there's nowhere to use the bathroom.
Mm.
How do you relieve yourself? Outside.
Mhm.
Try to find a place where nobody's watching.
Mm.
I mean, I mean, so I would have to sneak into restaurants and hope I
Mm.
could use the public bathroom there. But inevitably, the manager of the restaurant would see you coming in. You haven't had a shower in 3 months, so you don't smell so good. You don't look so good. Your hair is down to the middle of your back, and it doesn't look as beautiful as yours does.
Mm.
So as soon as you walk into the restaurant, the manager approaches you and says, "No, no, 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 no. You don't make me call the police. You're just going to panhandle the customers. We don't want you begging, the customers." And you have to say to them, "Please, please, I promise I won't say a word to anybody. I just need to use the toilet, please."
Mm.
You have to beg to use the bathroom.
Oh my God. Wow.
And then I'll never forget it, one manager of a local fast food place, a local McDonald's, and he said to me, "I'll make you a deal, man to man. We have an agreement. You give me your word that you will not ask anybody, not even if you find somebody in the men's room. I don't want you to talk to anybody about giving you any money.
Oh my gosh.
No begging for money, and you can use the bathroom whenever you need to."
Wow.
And we had a deal. We shook hands.
Oh my goodness.
And at least finally, after 3 or 4 months on the sidewalk, I had a place
Yeah.
to use the bathroom. And I never once asked anybody for a nickel in that place
Mm-hmm.
because I wanted to keep my word. But as soon as I walked out of that McDonald's, I'd walk down the street a few blocks and begin again asking people, please, could I have anything you have to spare?
Yeah.
And once in a while, a very kind person would actually give you some folding money,
Hmm.
not just a few coins. They would actually reach into their handbag or into their pocket and actually come out with a piece of folding money
Mm.
and say, here. So I learned the point of my telling you that story, Phyllis, is that I learned how little I need
Mm.
to
Mm-hmm.
actually be happy.
Ah.
And once I got back into a one-room apartment, it wasn't even really an apartment, it's just kind of a flat over somebody's garage. It
Mm-hmm.
had one room, but it had a couch and it had a shower
Hmm.
and it had a table and it actually had a refrigerator in there that I could get some food at a
Hmm.
grocery store and store it for a few days if I could find a way to earn some money.
Right.
And so I learned how little I need
Mm.
to be happy. Boy, what a growth spurt that was for me.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, from that day to this, I've never passed a person on the street
Oh,
who
yeah.
needs a little help.
Yeah.
I always make sure I have some folding money in my pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Always. And when I walk down the street and I see a person sitting on the sidewalk, leaning up against a building with a little basket in front of them, sometimes there's a cardboard sign that says, anything helps.
Mm-hmm.
I always make sure I drop some folding money into that basket.
Mm-hmm. You know, there's as you're telling this story and uh, you told it in some form when I talked to you before, but I mean, I'm tearing up because it feels so difficult, but on another side, there's something that freeing that came out of it. Um,
It was like a
and
college education. It was
yeah.
in that sense, it was the best time of my life
Oh my God.
because it relieved me of all of my old thoughts of what I
I
think I
see.
have to have in my life in order to be
I see.
happy.
I see. Hmm. So it's a relief now.
Totally. And
And
it also helped me understand what's important in life.
yeah,
I really came to realize, oh, I see. It's not about get the car, get the girl, get the house, get the stuff. It's not about that. It's not about, you know, the office in the corner with your name on the door or the building on the corner with your name on the building. That's not what it's about. That's not what I'm here for on this planet. Oh, I see. I came here for an entirely different reason.
hmm,
I'm not this.
yeah,
I'm not my body. I'm not my mind. I'm a spiritual entity
hmm,
having a physical experience for a particular reason to allow myself to demonstrate and express
hmm,
my true identity as an individuation of divinity.
hmm,
You know, the example that I like to use when I tell people this, Phyllis, is generosity. I think I'm a generous person. I don't mean just generous with my money. I mean, I'm generous with my time. I'm generous with my compassion, with my love for people. I think I'm generous with my emotions. Frankly, I think we all are. Most of us are. But it's one thing to know that I'm generous, but if I can't express it, that is,
Mhm.
push it out, if I can't express that aspect of my divinity, then what's the point of knowing it?
Mhm.
I want to be able to experience it. That's why I came to the physical realm. I came to the physical realm in order to experience through the demonstration thereof my true identity.
Mhm.
Now, when I walk down the street, if I see a person who could use some financial help, I do put some folding money in
Mhm.
that basket, and I can experience myself as Neale the generous.
Mhm.
Or if somebody simply needs some time from me,
Mhm.
even on a day when I don't think I have a lot of time, I might find a way to stretch the time that I have and
Mhm.
offer that time to somebody else. And I can experience what it means to simply be a generous person.
Mhm.
So I've come here, oh, I see, to experience who I really am.
That's true for all of us, correct? That we're all trying to experience who we are.
Well, it's true for everybody uh, on the planet. I was going to make a joke and say everybody except Phyllis, but
Wait a second.
it's even true for
Hold on
Phyllis.
now. Oh my goodness. Okay, so another thing that came up in the book as I was reading it, I don't know if this was intended, but I've talked to a lot of near-death experience people because for whatever reason, I love these stories and these experiences. They make sense to me. Part of the book, I don't know if it was the beginning or the middle, but you were talking about the way the words were talking about how we talk to everything, even inanimate objects. And I know in the near-death experience, everything is so connected that, we want to be saying, like I even say, don't say mean things to the computer. It's, or say
Oh
hello to
yeah,
the
I talk to my
tree.
car. I talk to
Yeah,
my car all the time.
yeah,
If my car won't start, I say, "Oh, sweetheart, don't do this to me. Come on." And then the car will start.
yeah.
When I'll never forget when I left my home. I sold my house. We decided to get a smaller place. But the day that I left my house for the last time after living in there for 14 years, believe it or not, I know this is going to sound crazy, Phyllis, but I actually walked up to the corner of the house and I gave it a hug.
Oh, okay.
I did. I put my arms around the corner of the house and I just said, I talked to the house and I just said, thank you.
Mm,
Thank you for 14 wonderful years.
nice. Yeah.
I mean, I know that sounds silly, but I talk to the tree in my backyard right now. There's a wonderful apple tree in my backyard. By the way, right now at this time in this time of year in where I live, the tree is harvesting apples. It's dropping apples all over the ground. We
Mm.
pick them up by the bushel. And I go out and I hug the tree.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's true. I'm a tree hugger.
I love
And
it.
I hug the
Literally.
tree and I
Yeah.
simply say to the tree in my mind, thank you for your plentiful harvest.
Yeah.
And we pick up the apples and wash them off and bring them into the house and we make apple pie and share them with our friends. And
Yum.
they
Yeah.
think we went out to the store and bought all these apples. I said, no, no, no. I have a tree in the backyard that gives us like 50 or 100 apples every year.
Wow. It just is, it's a lot to allow ourselves to be sensitive and aware in that way, especially when we've been so conditioned to chase the cars, chase the house, chase the money, that we're not going to be okay. Life's not going to be good for us. It's a lot of deconditioning. Um, but worth it. It is freeing to not be chasing those things. I think some of
And
us,
not only is it freeing not to be chasing those things, but it's fulfilling to
mm,
be choosing to use our life to demonstrate the highest thought we ever had about who we are.
mm, hmm.
Am I Neil the compassionate? Am I Neil the patient? Am I Neil the understanding one? Am I Neil the forgiving? Am I, in fact, Neil the generous? No, in fact, who am I? And
Mm,
who do I choose to be? I mean, Bill put it perfectly. Bill asked everyone the question, to be or not to be.
Bill.
That is the question.
Okay. I was like, who's Bill? I get it now. All right.
Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to
Oh,
rise up against a sea of troubles, and by
wow.
opposing to end them,
Wow.
to die, to
Mm,
sleep, perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub.
mm,
For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come.
mm. Okay, you guys, if you have something you'd like to ask Neil, I'll let you have some time. I'm going to be generous with the space. I'm taking him up to myself. Um, so what's the usefulness of learning how to hear God, converse with God over, I mean, there's so much in the book about how we do that, how to recognize it through imagery or sounds and it doesn't have to come through hardship, even though some of the stories in the book are really powerful and potent, like your story. Um, I guess the value is really in the freedom we get to be happier and fulfilled, but yet we stand in our way. Should I say me? Should I say I stand in my way? I won't include everybody here in that, but it just still seems so hard sometimes. I consider myself, I know everything's connected. I know I am divine, but why do I let things hurt? Why do I let things confound me? Why do I do that? Why do we do that? I don't have to take it on myself. Yes.
Well, I think we do it because our culture has taught us that that's the way to be human.
Mm, okay.
So what we need now are some idea heroes, people who are willing to be heroic enough to live into an idea that we know ahead of time many people will disagree with.
True.
So it's a counterculture idea. Or as Gandhi said a few years ago, be the change you wish to see in the world.
Yeah.
And so when we're willing to be the change we wish to see, then we suddenly understand, oh, I see now what I'm doing here. Oh, I get it. I get it. Now I see that part of what I'm doing here is bringing to the world a new idea of what it means to be human.
Mm, mm,
By the way, incidentally, not that I'm throwing roses, but that's in fact exactly what you're doing with a podcast like this. That's exactly what you're doing.
mm,
You're sharing with many, many people through the miracle of modern electronics
mm,
ideas that only an idea hero would dare to put before the public.
mm, mm. Thank you for
So,
saying that. I was just thinking I was being selfish by having you to myself for a period of time, even though there's lots of other people. Um, I'm just like, well, I want to do this. This will be interesting to me, but I appreciate that broader view. Well, let's talk about your book. And everyone, the book is God Talk. It's your 40th book. Um, there's some good questions that came across in your press packet. Let me find those so you can tell us more from your point of view. Oh yeah, this mom the story about a mother whose answers came through a vision of her child, a woman who was reassured her health condition would be healed. Those are powerful stories. One woman lost her child. I mean, these are people who came forward, right, to share their stories as part of the publisher went looking for these people, or how did they come about? Because I know
Well,
you thank them.
as I
Yeah,
mentioned a while ago, the publisher actually put an invitation out on the internet.
yeah,
If you feel that your life has experienced an intervention from the divine, send us your story. And hundreds of people did.
yeah.
And then they picked out 7 or 8 of the what they felt were really interesting stories and put them in the book to let people know that it's not just about this guy in Oregon, Neale Donald Walsch, who had a conversation with God. There are people all over the world who are having the exact same experience. And in fact, I've actually come to an awareness that everyone is having conversations with God all the time. They're simply calling it something else.
Hmm.
A psychic hit or an epiphany
Yeah.
or women's intuition,
Hmm.
or a coincidence, serendipity. They try to find other words because they don't want to be ridiculed by walking around saying, I had a conversation with God this morning. So they call it something else. But all of us are receiving information about life through the process of life itself. All we have to do is listen. Don't have the messages that are given to us go in one ear and out the other. The lessons about life that come to us through the process of life could be coming to us through something as simple as a podcast hosted by a person named Phyllis.
Okay. 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 All right. All right. Uh, well, all right. I hear you on that. And I agree. It's part of me being my best self and me continuing to evolve and try to share with others to the best of my ability. Uh, but I do wonder if I'm getting anywhere on behalf of myself. And does that even matter? Is there such a thing as
No, no,
myself?
no, it doesn't matter whether you're getting anywhere. If I had to worry about whether I was getting anywhere, I would never even say another word to anybody because there's a whole wide world out there. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying what I'm saying or doing what I'm doing in order to get somewhere.
Right.
I'm saying what I'm saying and doing what I'm doing in order to experience myself as who I
Okay.
really am.
Okay. Yeah. And in experiencing myself as who I am being most godlike. Am I in the
Um,
neighborhood? Am I?
yes, unless you're not. It depends on how you're behaving.
Okay.
But if your behavior is the behavior of the divine, and by the way, not transactional,
Mm-hmm.
but simply the behavior of pure love,
Mm-hmm.
which means that we interact with others in a way that demonstrates pure love. As I mentioned
Mm-hmm.
earlier, even if we disagree with them,
Mm-hmm.
even if we have a political or an economic or a social disagreement, we still interact from a place of pure love. And so we do, in fact, disagree agreeably.
Yes. Speaking transactional, so one of the books I've written is about abundance, called The Energy of Abundance. And I talked, and you may completely dispel everything I wrote in that book, but the idea is vibrate, creating a certain vibration or raising our vibration to be more attractive to certain things we would find benevolent. I mean, but when I hear you speak, that sounds transactional.
Well, I don't know that it's transactional in the classic sense. Um, what we understand to be a transaction is we must behave in a certain way in order to receive a certain response from someone else.
Okay.
I think that you're the kind of a person. I may be wrong. I could be wrong. You could be a horrible person. But I think that you're the kind of a person who would offer to others what you have to offer, whether they gave you what you thought you needed or not.
Okay, that's a fair statement.
And so, uh, frankly, it's not true of everybody, but I think it's true of the largest number of people. I think that we're all much better than we think we are. And most of us are willing to give to others, even if we don't think we're going to get something in equal measure back.
Hmm.
But we can't believe in a God who does that. We still think that God is transactional
Right.
because most of our religions teach us that God is transactional.
Yeah.
God only lets you come to heaven after you die if you obey the rules.
Mm, yeah.
And if you commit a sin, you must confess your sin and be forgiven. Wow. When I was a 9-year-old boy, I was told by my religion that it was a sin, a grievous sin, not a minor sin, but a major, what they call a mortal sin, to miss Mass on Sunday,
Mm,
1 week of your life.
yeah.
If you have a good excuse, if you're caring for a sick child or a sick parent, or if you have to support your family and your job requires you to work on Sunday, fair enough. But if you decide to just go play golf on a Sunday morning because it's a beautiful day and you haven't played golf in months, so you decide to go out and play golf, and you miss Mass on Sunday and you die on Monday in a car accident, God forbid, you're going straight to hell.
Hmm.
That's what my religion told me when I was 9 years old, that God requires you, not invites you, but requires you to come to church or go to hell.
Yeah.
And that's the God in which I was taught to believe,
Hmm.
a transactional deity who says, you give me what I want, and I'll give you what you want, but you don't give me what I want, and you're going to be in bigger trouble than you could ever have imagined.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
And my 9-year-old mind knew that that can't be the way it is. That
Yeah.
Phyllis, I can remember sitting in my third grade class because I went to a school that was run by a religious denomination. It was a Catholic school. And I can remember at the age of 9 saying to myself, that can't be the way it is. That can't be the God
Mm.
doesn't send you to hell for missing church 1 week of your life
Yeah.
because you went to play golf.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
So, but that's what I was taught. If you're a Muslim, your religion teaches you, if you happen to be a woman, that you may not leave your house without being accompanied by a male
All
relative.
right. Right.
You may also not leave your house without wearing a hijab, that is, a garment that covers your hair and covers your body so no one can see the color of your hair or the shape of your body. Now
Mm.
I understand, why, because just looking at you with your beautiful hair and the shape of your beautiful body,
Thank
a
you.
guy could go crazy.
Okay. Thank you.
So I understand. But come on, it's
Mm.
not an offense against God for you to be that beautiful. It's not your fault that you're that gorgeous.
Mm.
And you should be able to share your beauty with the world, whether it's intellectual beauty, spiritual beauty, physical beauty, or all of the above. Come on. Our beauty was given to us to share, and all of us are beautiful, each in our own way.
Mhm.
I could be wrong about all of this. I could be wrong, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think being a psychic, when truth is spoken, it feels a certain way in your body. So I don't always know what it is, but I always know what it isn't. So And if I'm quiet enough and not getting in my own way, I can I can feel it. So, and I think the how many millions of people have read your books? We've
Um,
lost track.
let's see. How many millions of people?
Well,
Hello? How many millions of people have read? Oh, thanks. Okay.
okay. All right. Did you get the number? No. Think.
Something like 15 million at this point.
Well, it's pretty hard for 50 million people to turn away from something if it doesn't have some resonance to it. You guys listening, I'm keeping Neil to myself and I will continue to do so.
Well,
Um,
Effie's got a question. She's
oh,
been wanting to
Effie,
ask for the past 15 minutes, but she's
Effie,
just afraid to raise her hand.
is somebody bold? He's relatively harmless.
I don't have
Relatively.
I don't have a question, but I will just say hello. And it's great to meet you and to be here to listen to all of your wisdom.
Thank you, Effie. It's very sweet of you to say that. And I'm glad you don't have any question because that tells me that you understand everything.
Of course, she's brilliant. Okay, Ileana, what about you? You look eager, like you could really give us a good one.
I feel bad
No,
because my house is loud. I look peaceful, but my house is loud in the background. So I mean, I too just want to say thank you so much. And it is an honor to meet you. And also, I wish my dad could have made it on with us today. He lives in northern Greece in the mountains, but I will tell you that for the past probably 20 years at least, he has told everyone how you saved his life
Oh,
and what a hero you are.
oh.
So,
Do you want to share that story?
it's a
um,
very personal
I
story,
know
I'm
I'm like, oh,
sure.
I don't want to get emotional, but
There's worse things.
there's worse things. But yeah, he was in a really bad place. We'll just say that he was in a really bad place. He fell into partying a little too much. He ended up having to lose um getting to be with me and my mom as I grew up. And he was very lost. And your work really touched him. I think, I can't remember exactly now, but I think he was watching TV like in the middle of the night and there was an advertisement. There was an advertisement about your book and something in him, there was something that needed hope so much that he bought the book. I can't remember the story exactly, and maybe Effie remembers the story because she hears from my dad too all the time how you are his sole hero, like and
Oh,
really, and because of you, I will share that he speaks to many people over in Greece. He lectures. His focus is on metaphysics, and he really works hard, dedicating his life to helping others and helping them to realize that God is coming from within and not to think that God is some, being far away that's unattainable, and someone that we can't communicate with, but that God is inside of us. And he always references you, Neale, and your work. So my dad is he is experiencing who he is meant to be in this life, and he is sharing that with others. And because of you and your work, he's able to do that and has, I mean, it was really nice to be able to have him come back into my life in such a big way. So, um, so from even me and all the people that he touches, I guess a big thank you from from everyone. So it's amazing to know like how one person can affect the lives of so many.
Thank you, Ileana. Those are very kind words. And thank your father as well for the work he's doing in the world now. I want to share with everyone who's within the sound of my voice really, it's not about me. All I did was take dictation.
Hmm.
All I did was take dictation. I simply asked questions and wrote down the answers that I was given to share. And I was told to share those answers with as many people as I possibly could. And I did as I was told. But if my willingness to share the answers that I was given has impacted your life and your father's life in a positive way, I'm very humbly grateful. And thank you for telling me those kind things. Thank you for saying that.
You know what? He just surprised me, Neil, because now I'm seeing him in the messages. He's saying, I'm here. I love Neil.
Oh,
It's in the
that's
middle of
wonderful.
the night in Greece right now, so I'm glad that he at least turned his computer on. I'm
Oh,
here.
Oh,
oh,
I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you.
it's not.
Thank you, both
Oh,
of you.
he says I'm here. He's in the chat room. Good.
Yes, yes,
Thank you, Ileana. It's
yes.
beautiful.
Well, thank you so much to both of you for doing this and to be here. So,
Anybody else want to jump in before I jump back in? You know me. You got to shut me up or I'll keep talking.
That's my story.
Oh, here's one. Here's a chat question. Uh, how would you comfort and explain? This is from Sonia. How would you comfort and explain people to people with multiple health issues? There's certainly lots of stories in the book, but how would
Well,
you?
sweetie, I've had multiple health issues in my life. I was born with a congenital heart defect, which plagued me throughout my entire life. As a child, I was not allowed to run and play with the other kids because all I heard was that if I got too excited and ran too fast or that my heart would fail. And so I couldn't play like all the other kids did. I wound up reading a lot and, I wound up as kind of a sheltered child. And then it got worse as I got older. And when I was 50 years old, I wound up having open heart surgery,
Mm,
a quintuple bypass.
oh my,
So
wow.
I've had my share of physical ailments, if you please. And not just living on the sidewalk, but some health issues as well, major health issues. What would I say to a person? This is going to sound strange, but I would say it anyway. Be grateful.
Mm,
Move into gratitude. Gratitude is the attitude that creates an extraordinary tomorrow. And when we become grateful for all the events of our life, we change the impact that those events had on us,
mm,
or maybe having on us even in the present moment. Because gratitude helps us to see that everything that has ever occurred has brought us in some way benefit, caused us to grow, caused us to expand. Even as I said a while ago, even my year on the street was one of the best things that ever happened to me
mm,
because it caused me to really get back in touch with who I really am and what's really important in life. So gratitude is a powerful, powerful energetic that produces outcomes in our life that are almost beyond belief. And that's what I would say to anybody who's moving through difficult and challenging moments in their life. Thank you, God, for helping me to understand that this problem is already being solved for me. And thank you, God, for helping me to know that I will grow in ways I can't even imagine as a result of what is now occurring.
mm.
And if growth is my objective, and by the way, it is,
Hmm.
the purpose of all of life, I can put in one word: evolution. The purpose of our life is to evolve into the next grandest version of the greatest vision ever we held about who we are. All of life seeks to evolve. And so, even the worst moments of my life, you know what's interesting, Phyllis? I've actually asked people in lectures. I've been in front of an audience of many people, and I've said to them, how many of you have experienced what you thought when it was happening was one of the worst things that could ever happen in your life, only to experience 2 months or 2 years later that it was one of the best things that ever happened to you because of what occurred as a result?
Yeah.
How many of you have experienced that? And you know what's interesting, Phyllis? 95% of the hands in the audience go up. It's a common human experience. The master, the spiritual master, is the one who knows this ahead of time and doesn't have to wait for 2 months or 2 years to experience the benefit that will proceed from all of life as it is now occurring.
The book, where do we get the book? Is it in bookstores? Where do we find the book?
I think you could find it almost any place where books are sold.
Oh, okay, good. All
And,
the
and certainly
stores.
any online bookstore, you just type in the title,
Right.
God Talk, and you could get it.
And your website is Neale, Neale, Donald Walsch, WALSCH.com. Do you have any classes or anything? Are you taking any students currently, or what's going on in your world in that regard?
Yes, we have a monthly retreat, monthly spiritual renewal retreat. We have one on the 7th of June, this coming Saturday. And it's a 6-hour retreat. It's a day, it's most of the day. We start at 8 o'clock in the morning and we finish at 3:30 in the afternoon. And people are invited to enroll in that program if it serves them to do so. And they can ask questions and interact back and forth with each other and with me, just as you would if you were in the room together. So it's a wonderful experience. It's one of many programs that are offered by the Conversations with God Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization.
Sounds wonderful. Sounds absolutely wonderful. I can't believe our hour is over. Neale, I'm so grateful you took time to be with us today. Truly, I feel uplifted, encouraged, ready to stay awake. I can do this. I was meant for this. It's going to be okay. I appreciate you being here so much and everybody else for joining us.
I'm glad you were here as well, and I'm glad I had the opportunity. Thank you for the opportunity to share this with you.
Yeah. Stay well, and hopefully I can speak to you another time when you make another book.
All right, my friend.
All right.
Bye for now.
Take care, everybody.